You're all live now.
Thank you. Who else is in the process, Chris, are as close as we are?
They're finishing up CCRI. West Warwick just finished. I have to put that report together. I've got two that I'm putting teams together for West Greenwich. And I'm trying to think who else. West Greenwich. I'm drawing a blank. Yeah, I've got it somewhere, but there's a few in the pipeline. Rhode Island College will be coming soon. And I'm still tracking chiefs down for their use of force certification request letter, because this afternoon I have to report out to DOJ on that and find out how I submit the list. So I've been haunting a couple of them because I don't want to see anybody lose out on potential grant funds.
Of course.
And without that letter, after January 31st, forget it.
Right.
So we will see.
I'm cautiously optimistic that we'll see a change with the JAG burn money being released.
Yes.
And other COPS grants being available for us if going forward.
Yes, but be careful what you wish for, because some of that money might be coming to meet reform efforts.
Right. Well, I'm sure there'll be earmarks placed on it for certain policy changes and procedures, but the fact that we're going through this and that we've already submitted it, I would like to think helps. So if it furthers our current efforts and goals, then I'll take anything that we can get. So
Right.
to kind of, keep moving that needle in the right direction.
So how is your department doing with COVID?
So for the most part, we've been lucky. I'm knocking on wood. We've had like mini outbreaks, and I know we spoke about that last week too. Now that I think we want to say, and the captain sergeant can correct me, but as far as the number of personnel, officers, and non-sworn members, we got about like 95% compliance with those who wanted to get the vaccine.
Oh,
So
that's good.
now we're into the second shot regimen. There was only a couple that didn't want it. So now we're into the second shot regimen. But interestingly enough, and we're kind of watching it as our own little science experiment, we had a mini outbreak last week. And because most of us already had the first vaccine, those we did a test because someone was positive or developed symptoms, and the person that developed symptoms did not get the vaccine. But the ones that this person infected who came back positive showed no symptoms whatsoever. We had to send them home. Tell them, says, you're positive, you got to go home. They're like, really? So we're kind of, not that this is based in any sort of science,
No.
but kind of just for our own edification to see, all right, you got the vaccine, you didn't even know you were positive and you had no symptoms. And the people here that did not get the vaccine that were positive got really sick. So,
yeah, that's interesting.
yeah, we're kind of just keeping an eye on that. But other than that, again, I know of some agencies, both police and fire, that just got decimated with COVID and then contact and quarantine. For a smaller agency, we've been very, very fortunate because in March, we were worried about it was going to wipe us all out. Like we were looking at our mutual aid agreements. I spoke to all the local chiefs just in case we had to, cover one another. Nothing happened. Got through the summer, everything kind of eased up a little bit, and then the fall hit, and then that's when we got our first case.
Yeah, Charleston last summer, the day before we were supposed to go down there to do an in-person on-site, 8 of their guys contracted it. So luckily we got canceled. So ever since then, I said, that's it. No more on-sites,
Yeah.
physical
Unfortunately,
on-sites.
it is, and even now more so, it's the contact is, interestingly enough, of the contacts that we've had, or the positive cases that we've had here, and we ask our employees, like, what do you think happened? They know. They know, we went here and we did this, or I went out to dinner, or I had to attend a function. I was wearing a mask, but, and just things kind of unraveled from there.
Nothing's been traced back to the job. We haven't had a single person trace it back to an on-job exposure. Everything's been from outside.
Yeah.
Because it's just, it's so virulent, it's, you can't do anything. And people are getting hit with it, because then they're associating with folks that they think are okay or they look fine. And then it's who they associated with. It's like all those memes and all those videos that you see about, the ping pong balls and how it spreads. It's
Yes.
insane.
That's the thing. You just don't know. And now what are they saying? Double masks?
I did see that too. But I have to say, and maybe it's just me, but I mean, I've been wearing a double mask for a long time. And I wear an N95 and then I wear the black because I just get a better fit, because the N95, it's awkward. But the mask that I wear over the N95 has adjustables. So I don't notice it. Don't notice it at all. So, but I hope that, I know I was speaking with our fire chief too, and hopefully as more vaccines come in and we can start vaccinating the general public more, we'll get to a place that's just, we're in a better place. That's where we
Yeah. Well, that would be nice, but according to Go Local today, Rhode Island's at the bottom of the pile again.
Yeah, I think it depends on just, the number of vaccines, and it's crazy. It's crazy. So, and I know we were talking about the sergeant and I were just talking about the police academy, because we just started a recruitment drive.
Yeah.
Yesterday. Well, it got approved Monday, so it went out. Because we have right now 2 open positions, because we were knocked 2 off because they limited the number of people going to the police academy.
Yeah.
So depending on what happens in July, given where we are, the number of vaccines to the general public, how many recruits are they going to let in?
I know it.
Because I know a lot of chiefs were upset because they were limited.
Yeah, well, they're behind now.
They're going to have like an 80 recruit academy just to get even, never mind get ahead. I mean, we're fortunate that I would have preferred to have 4, but even how it worked out, we had other logistical issues with the recruits. We were able to save the 2 seats that we were afforded, and that's a win for us. Now we're behind 2. But if we can stay stable and put 2 into the next class, but even that means that we will not be full staff until 2022, which gives us essentially a year of potentially someone retiring, someone leaving, someone resigning, someone going to another agency. And that's the cycle it's been for decades.
Yeah.
And
Well,
it seems to be a common theme.
I was talking to Donna last week, and she said it's amazing the kids that like day 2 or 3, they're like, yeah, this isn't for me, and just leave.
The sergeant,
That never happened when we went through.
Nope.
It's
I know.
insane.
And it's such a, you do so much vetting of these recruits, and then to get them in there and they last 24 hours.
And you've lost the spot.
And even when we never had backups, because we always decided these are our 2 people. These are the 2 that we back. We want to send them. Now you have to have backups. You have to, or you're going to lose it. You're going to lose this, and then you lose a year.
Right.
So you always have to have alternates, because if you don't, you're going to set yourself behind a year.
Yeah. But if you do the psych on that alternate, and they don't end up going, are they still going to be good for the next academy, or is Dr. Gallagher making you retest them?
I think it's a 6-month period. I think that Dr. Gallagher makes it that it's only good for 6 months, I believe. So it's 6 months from the date of approved. But I think they made an exception this time around, because we had an alternate go in who I believe had his in July. So he was able to somehow just get in, but so.
And even that to me is ridiculous.
Yeah, it definitely is.
It's all about money.
Short of them having some sort of major issue in their life, you know, it'd be one thing that, and we can take care of that. You know, you psych a recruit and something happens, they lose a child, they get involved with something. Okay, well, now we have to take that into consideration. Maybe another psych would be warranted, but other than that, any, you know, life altering, life major crisis, I don't see what's going to change in the recruit's life. So
Yeah. No.
But yeah, we'll see. It's definitely crazy, just with the trying to stay ahead of the hiring and with everything, with COVID and stabilizing everything. It's difficult.
It's almost like recruitment now is just a continual ongoing thing, where like years ago, you maybe did one in every couple of years.
Right.
Now they're just
When I got hired in 2013, we had 3 go through the same academy at the same time, which was like, for Tiverton, was like, oh my God, you guys are going to run the department. I mean, for the most part, we've been sending 4, 5, 3, 2 as for the last couple of classes that I can remember. So it's just ongoing.
Yeah, it's crazy.
And I think with us, fortunately, the town government, the administrative, the council, they finally get it. They get it that, you know, when we're asking for these positions, it's not an increase in our staffing. It's constantly playing catch up, because the average employee, you hire them, they do an OJT, an on-the-job training, and they're there. So they to try to get in their minds how the academy works, and then how it crosses fiscal cycles. So I'll carry an open position that I cannot fill, that will be unfilled for an entire fiscal cycle, but now I need it back in the next fiscal cycle. It's like, well, that position goes unfilled, but it wasn't unfilled. You know, it's a vacancy. It's not a reduction, or it's not an addition.
Right.
But now they're starting to get it in how the academy works, and how it's math and it's timing. But by telling them that we'll have a vacancy today, we'll be lucky to fill it within a year, meaning that we'll go through a process. We'll send the person to the academy for 20 weeks. Then we'll do 3 months of field training, and then they'll be on their own. So it takes the better part of a year. And during that year, it doesn't bar anyone else from leaving, retiring, or resigning. Right. So it's always that. And fortunately, we're in a place now that they understand that. They get it. Because it's not easy when you're trying to explain it to lay people, or council members, the administrator. They're like, "What's the problem? Why can't you just hire somebody?" It's not just hiring somebody.
Yeah. Unless you're fortunate enough to get a lateral.
Right. And we've had laterals. We've had laterals in the past, and they've worked out great. But we haven't had a lateral in a while. So, and it seems like with a lot of laterals, there's competition for those laterals now.
Oh, yeah.
And it's interesting too, because with so many agencies going to state pension plan, so they'll move where we're still private, and we are private. But I've heard of a officer in a Tiverton, like a smaller agency, which has a state pension plan. He or she will do 4 or 5 years and then move to another agency, which is state pension plan. All that time carries over. So that's a benefit for the larger agency and the officer. We've had a couple of officers, active officers, that have been interested in lateraling here, but they're coming over and they're losing money.
Right.
So, and then they're losing seniority, they're losing all that. We had one officer that we were looking at, it was going to be a $10,000 to $15,000 pay decrease for him to come here. It just wasn't worth it for him.
Yeah.
And when you're having a family and life issues, you can't take that much of a hit and then have to build it back up over years.
Right.
That's been our problem with the laterals.
Did you hear who got the chief in Swansea?
I did.
I didn't. Who did?
Mark Haslam, the internal candidate.
Oh, that's interesting. I heard they did not want an internal. There was some
Well, I know they did this.
tension.
They did the search, and Christine and I were talking about the Warwick chief, Rick Rathman. He was one of the final candidates. So it was between him and Mark Haslam. So I heard it last night that the board of selectmen went with Mark Haslam as the internal candidate, and I would imagine they're going to work out all the final details, but he's been offered the job. So
Surprised over Rick.
I was too, to be honest with you.
I know
heard the
Haslam,
same
so
thing.
I'm even more surprised.
I'm a fan of internal candidates. I'll just say that.
But yeah, for that reason.
Yes.
But knowing the two individuals, I'm surprised.
It's tough. Rick will get a job somewhere. It's just a matter of where and the timing,
Yeah.
and whether he's willing, how far he's willing to move. So Swansea's convenient. You know, if you're the chief in Warwick and you get a job open in Swansea, that's convenient. On Rhode Island, we're just so small. So
To be honest with you, I don't think he'll take a chief's job in Rhode Island.
yeah, okay, I can see. Yeah, I've been there, done that. I can understand that with him. Yeah, but in New England, if he's willing to move, he's a top flight candidate. I mean, he'll get a job. There's no doubt. And with the turnover with chiefs, it's just how far he's willing to branch out, how far he's willing to go. But with his credentials and resume, he brings it all to the table.
Yeah. If you're considering an internal candidate, don't put other people through the whole dog and pony show.
Well,
And if you've got an agency that's really running well and you've got an internal candidate, you really should only go outside when it's time for that change. Not just for the sake of change, but when it's time for a change or nobody inside the agency wants it. Ooh, do I see?
I do too.
Ooh, Q&As are popping up.
Yeah, I want to answer.
What is that?
Yeah, I would just ignore that.
Andrew, are you looking at the Q&As?
Yes, I just saw that.
Thank you.
Can we shut them out?
Yeah,
Yeah, I just removed them.
thank you. Yeah, Andrew's on it.
Thank you, Andrew.
beauty of the internet.
So,
Yeah. How are things going with the casino? Has that been pretty quiet?
for the most part, it's COVID really just took its legs out. Because I mean, remember, it's only been open for a year. So, and we have a 24-hour presence there. I mean, and I know the captain can speak to it, and so can the sergeant. I mean, they work there. So, and the way it is, I mean, they work with good people there, and they have a good handle on it. And it's normally, and I'm sure they'll speak to it, it's the regulars that go there. But also where it's located, I mean, it's location, location, location. I mean, how they design that traffic circle, you come right off, you come right out. It's really convenient for us. But then when COVID hit and it shut down, and then it came back, and then with the limited hours, what they do, from what I've seen and spoken to the staff over there, they do a good job, or as best as I've seen in most places, of mitigation of trying to keep the virus out. But I also understand that the Tiverton Casino is busier as far as patronage than the Lincoln Casino. So
Really?
I don't know how that works, but and this was before the last pause, so that information a little dated. But
they've been very busy on the weekends. They're hitting capacity every weekend, Saturdays, Sundays, even weekday nights is getting busy. I think people are just bored and can't go anywhere, and it's one of the few places around that are open, but we're seeing a lot of people from the Bedford Fall River. Surprising when I look at our use of force analysis, that's the place where we had the most use of force incidents last year was the casino.
Lincoln PD, same thing.
Yeah,
When Phil
not
broke it
surprising.
down, that's where the use of force, which, and this is a lot of work, but those are useful tools for the chief when you're going to request more security or whatever. I mean, this isn't just to make you do something for the hell of it. All the things attached to Marco, I think you can see it doing the accreditation. There's a purpose behind all of it.
Yep.
And a lot of it all comes back around and ties in together.
Definitely.
I know the other thing that the sergeant was saying too is about, because you going into the casino, it's a casino. The cameras, you're watched from every angle. So we were having that discussion about body cameras and how in being able to review the video because of the use of force incidents that we've had, of the altercations, the arrests, you just see everything from a different perspective. Or if there's any question about it, it's if anything, the officers were not only de-escalating, but they were giving a lot of leeway to the person, before they actually had to put their hands on them and physically do something, because it was at the point that I'm sure if a layman was looking at it, they'd be like, why don't they just arrest this guy already? But you could see that they're trying to talk to him, trying to get him to comply, and being able to capture that on video is really important. And an interesting little experiment for us without body cameras. So we can actually see it.
Yeah, and for an agency your size, the makeup of your community and the environment, you really have to take that step back and go, is it an expense we really need?
Like, how much was it, Cap?
$142,000 for 5 years. For 32 cameras. Well, that was the premier package. So it's the one that as soon as your taser comes out, it activates. As soon as your weapon comes out, it activates. So we got all the bells and whistles, but yeah, it was 142 for 32 units over 5 years.
That's a lot of money. And
A lot of money.
it comes down to how many kind of complaints are you getting against your personnel,
Right.
to begin with. For some communities, I think it makes sense, but just because everybody thinks, and it's funny because the trust doesn't like them. They don't see it as the end all be all.
Right.
You really don't get a lot of use of force complaints at all, actually.
Most departments don't.
So yeah, it is. It's I mean, I'm an advocate. I like the body cameras. I do. But it does. It comes. But of all, and with all the chiefs that I've spoken to, even the ones that are even the ones that might be on the fence a little bit, it's not a question of. It's a tool, and that's all it is. It's not a silver bullet. It's not the end all be all, and you got to recognize that right up front. It's the expense. There are so many other issues that we're dealing with.
Well,
I know
the
the
public
legislation.
records request alone, until they address the law.
Yeah, there's so much. I mean, then we have, and we're going to, all right, we spent $150,000 over 5 years to get this premier package. We're all hooked up. All our officers are there. Who's going to review all of this video? How are we going to do this on a daily basis? Audit our officers, catalog this. If someone from the public comes in and says, I want to look at all of Officer Jones's video for the past 5 years, that's a labor intensive job. How are we how long do we need to keep it? Should we keep it all? If it's tagged with an arrest, and I just don't know enough about it. And I'm sure agencies do it much bigger than ours and they're able to do it, but I'm sure that they have staff just dedicated to doing that. And for a smaller agency, it's harder.
Yeah. Most of them hired staff.
Right.
It's crazy. And the issues of, the cops were at the neighbor's house last night. I'm going to go get a copy of the body cam video. I want to see what happened.
Oh, we got a Q&A thanking us for our services.
Oh, You responding, chief?
I did. Thank you. So, yeah, I mean, it's, and the other issue that I know, Chris, you can speak about this too, because I know the new IMC or whatever that's going to look like.
Yeah.
I mean, you talk about money and IT, and I know the captain, the sergeant know, and the town knows, because we just started spending, and we just spent a lot of money on our IT infrastructure. So before, and again, as much as I do, I like the idea of body cameras. I like the use of them, the everything, especially with the generation of police officers that we got coming in. They like the technology too. So the hurdle, the mountain of trying to implement these 20 years ago, I don't think it's not a mountain anymore. It's more like a little hill, but it's the expense and it's the logistical backup that we have to deal with.
Yeah.
But the IT issue for us now is, I mean, we have computers here that we're running that are not, I think we got a couple of them. We did a pretty good job of policing a lot of them out, but they're still running Windows XP. So, I mean,
I thought Windows XP wasn't even supported anymore.
it's not.
On our APIS machine, it is.
Yeah, it's not.
Thank God.
So, and I mean, that's it. That's the problem. And now they're talking about doing, which is great. And I think it's good that we're finally going to something different, and that we can all, and we're a small enough state that we should be somewhat interoperable.
Yes.
But what is that going to look like? Because now because I know we've spoken to our IT people, and they've just looked at the general requirements of what this new program could be.
Yeah.
And our system wouldn't support it as it is right now. So we're working on it. But
I don't see it. I don't think IMC's that bad. I mean,
I just think it's,
especially if you're going to lose 25 years of data.
Well, the problem is
That is insane.
that they've become the monopoly,
Yeah.
you know? So, and they really haven't taken the steps to update the way some of these other platforms out there have. You know, it's like they're not going out of their way to keep us, because in a sense, like you said, Mike, all that data, everybody's very familiar with it. It works.
Yeah, I just can't tell you how many crimes we solved in detectives just going to cross agency, finding, a report from another agency. Oh, it's that guy, same MO, matches. Okay, there he is. Boom.
Yeah, but Mike, if you saw some of the other platforms that they're looking at.
No, they're awesome. I saw the one. Yeah, I went to the seminar for the one they're going to go to. It's very cool. It is. It's just, I hate to just start from scratch and lose, like I said, 25 years of in-house records on people and things like that.
Yeah.
That's how long I got IMC for.
I'm not sure we'll lose it, but I think it's all about, we don't want to run two systems, because we'll be running two systems for a while. And then how much of that data comes over? So I feel like the mugshots and the basic will come over. But if you want to look at, Cap, to your point, if I want to look at a case that was solved in 2001 or 1999 to solve a case, am I going to have like the immediate access?
No. Yeah. They were when I went to the seminar, that company, this is the first question I asked, they were very sketchy on whether the stuff came over. They would not give a straight answer. Like, oh, maybe, they were really sketchy on it.
Yeah, because I don't think they know what they can.
I don't think it can.
Well, we're a half hour in and you got a nice thumbs up so far.
I'll take that.
Yeah, better than a thumbs down. I mean, this isn't actually a bad idea, because I think people might be more likely to use this kind of platform than actually pick up the phone and call.
Right.
Nobody calls anymore. It's a text.
Right.
Now, speaking of text, the boss just texted me. Looking for the link for the 2:30 meeting. I don't understand how they're not getting it. Speaking of technology.
So Chris, what's next for us? And I know the deputy chief was asking me this, and he kind of raised a good point. He says, all right, we want to do this thing on Wednesday with Chris and then the public and the captain side. He goes, yep. And then are we done? So I know you have to
You
write
have
up a
to wait
report.
for me to finish your report. I take Mike's information, mine, I put it together. I forward it to the commission, they review it, they take a vote. We usually do it via email, so you're not waiting until the next quarterly. And then we do a formal vote on the record at the quarterly meeting. So,
Okay. When's the next quarterly? You have any idea?
well, we do them 4 times a year, so they're always March, June.
Okay, I was going to say this, yeah, because we're in January still. So
Right. Right. So rather than make you wait till March, you know, I have to say, and even Mike said, this one went really smooth for an initial. Sometimes when we do these initials, it can take up to 6 months to complete
wow.
because of work that has to be done. But no, this one went very smooth.
Good job, Marco.
Savano and the captain.
Well, Marco, I told the chief when we spoke last week, it is so important to put the right person in charge of accreditation.
Sure.
One, you have to have the desire because, as you know, it's a lot of work.
Yeah. Yes, it is.
You have to be a good multitasker. But also kind of enjoy it and see the benefit of it.
Sure.
And you get it. So soon I'll have you out going through other people's files.
That sounds good to me.
I mean, and it, like I tell people, it's not an IRS audit. It's about making you better than you were before we came in.
Sure. Yeah, I definitely see the benefits of it now, just going through the entirety of it. And I kind of had a conversation with the chief the other day about, prior to going through all of this process, I felt like 85 to 90%, I was kind of just, I hope this is the best course of action. And the other 10% was realizing, okay, like this, I need to understand this a little bit better in order to progress with this kind of stuff. So
yeah,
I get it.
And the first time that a lawyer comes knocking and you can go, here's our policy. Oh, and by the way, here's the proof that we follow it.
Right.
That's when you go, it was all worth it.
Yep. I definitely see that now.
I can't imagine going to court and having to say that we're not. If how do you explain under a deposition or to a jury or to a judge that you're getting sued and the 80, 85%, 90% of the law enforcement agencies in your state have gone through this process? Why aren't you going through it? What knowledge do you have that you shouldn't be part of it? Other than a financial aspect of it, which there's really no financial aspect of it.
Right.
It's just, following accepted policies and procedures and practices. I can't imagine trying to answer that. You can't answer that question because it's just going to expose you.
Right. Right. I don't know.
Also, when we were getting certain subpoenas for certain records and things like that, it made me realize the importance of making sure you keep proper documentation and all that stuff, because it just makes the person who receives that information, their job, a nightmare. Versus if we're following it more diligently, it just makes it that much better.
Yeah. And a couple of chiefs have told me, Chris, I thought this stuff was a pain in the ass until a reporter or somebody called and I'm like, oh, I already have all that stuff.
Yep.
It's not foolproof, but you can't policy your way through how we're going to do this job. But I tell people, and sometimes when they give me crap in a file folder, I'll go, would you give this to a lawyer if he asked for it? So do this as if you were preparing it for an attorney,
Right.
I know we talked about before too, because even with, in the old philosophy or mindset, especially among police officers, like with a policy manual or a rule book, was just a way that administration would try and trip you up, or this is, if it's going to get me in trouble. Now it's more viewed upon
when somebody was in the shits. Yeah.
Right. It's just more of a view of, this is a how-to manual. I'm giving you an instruction booklet on how to do your job. And I know we talked about it a while ago about like doing something that you don't do every day, but can be extraordinarily litigious and with liability, a strip search of a suspect, something like that. You want that there's no question that has to be done by the numbers. And we are allowed as law enforcement to do it. But if you're not sure, pull out your instruction manual and follow the numbers. So if you do it and something results, whether it's you find evidence or nothing results or a lawsuit results, you can say, we did all of this by the numbers, the justification, everything was there. And that's going to save people's jobs, defend us in a lawsuit, and we're all good. That's what policies are there for. You did your job. You followed the numbers. Everything was there.
Absolutely.
I mean, people are going to sue us, and and this, Chris, and we all know this. As far as law enforcement, the police department, we got the most liability in most municipalities, because and the big payouts are as a result of law enforcement. Whether they're doing their job or they're not doing their job, the payouts are coming based on law enforcement and what they do or don't do. And if they can have accreditation, policies, procedures, it's going to drastically reduce, if not eliminate in most cases, those big payouts, people losing their job, total administration changes, it's a given. I can't understand why some people wouldn't want to do it. I know. I'm being rhetorical.
Because we're live, I'm going to be quiet. Oh, you know what? Are you taking a screenshot or something of this for your 20 for 20?
I can.
Because you need that to prove that you did your community meeting, right?
I'm sure Andrew will be able to send me a copy, and this gets posted on the town's YouTube site. But
Okay.
Andrew, you got us, as you always do, I'm sure.
Yes, I can send it over to you.
Well, we've got about another 20 minutes. Now, I'll ask another question, just for not to give the captain, the sergeant a heart attack. If we get our Rhode Island accreditation, and now how many agencies in Rhode Island are nationally accredited?
11.
11. So the difference between state and national.
Big bucks.
Okay. So that's where financial comes into play.
Yes, and if you ask Matt Benson, he'll tell you that he thinks our program is a little, we require a little bit more than CALEA does. Because again, you got to remember, CALEA's program is created for a variety of different agencies across the country. But theirs is a little more expensive, hence why Rhode Island decided to develop their own program to make it cost effective. If you did want to go over to CALEA, like Central Falls and Johnston did, it wouldn't be as big a jump because we tried to keep our standards in line with CALEA. But that having been said, they jumped and they've done a lot of updates since all the use of force, and I haven't made any changes to our use of force stuff yet. First, I wanted to make sure the use of force policy was updated, sent out. And because just about everybody, even agencies who aren't trust clients, adopted that policy, we're ahead of what the standards require anyway. And I don't want to do a knee jerk and jump. I want to kind of sit back and see what happens because I want to create standards that I'm going to have to change.
Okay.
But for the most part, it would be a very easy transition over to CALIA.
So, and correct me if I'm wrong, for Rhode Island accreditation, it's $4,000 a year, $2,000 of which is paid for by the trust. Right?
No, it's $2,000 a year.
Yep.
The trust reimburses their members $500 a year towards those dues.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's $1,500 a year, and you pay for nothing else, any training, me coming in and out. With CALIA, like if you miss your deadlines, you know, that go beyond the 3 years, they whack you fees for that.
And I know it's based on size with CALIA too.
Correct.
Like an agency like ours, I think the last time I checked, it was right around like $15,000.
For the 4-year period, maybe. Where here, it's 6,000. You know, because of your money back from the trust.
Right. Okay. Okay. And then and it's just adding additional standards for CALIA, but some of those standards are pretty much already incorporated into what we do.
Yes.
So it's not that big of a, they have like, and I think, correct me if I'm wrong, it's 216 for Rhode Island?
We have 204 standards right now. I
Okay.
think CALIA's, they call it accreditation and then advanced accreditation. So for their accreditation program, I want to say it's about 188 standards.
Okay. Okay.
So, you know, when it comes down to a money thing, yeah, it's great to say you have both of them, but is it money well spent?
Right. Right.
You know, and one of my issues with CALIA is, you know, you got an agency, let's take, well, I won't name the agency. You know the agency we had problems with. CALIA didn't know that those issues were going on until we discovered them.
Right. Gotcha. Right.
So I think there's a little more accountability when your accrediting body is in your backyard,
Oh, yeah.
not in Virginia.
Yeah, because I wouldn't, right. I mean, if I have a question about anything, Chris, I'm texting you, emailing you, phone calling you, and you're getting bombarded, and you know all of us. We have a personal professional relationship. I wouldn't know who to call from CALIA. I'd probably be waiting for some rep who covers New England to call me back.
Well, the program manager for the New England area, we're very fortunate. It's Paul McMillan. He's a retired chief from the MBTA.
Okay.
He was the chief at the time of the Boston Marathon shooting. He had the officer who was shot. Paul is a straight shooter, doesn't always agree with some of the things that CALIA does, but he's our contact. Great guy, very responsive.
Okay.
So.
Right, but I mean, I'm sure that probably aside from a few chiefs and the ones that are CALIA accredited, they don't know him. But we know you, so we enjoy that benefit when it comes through the state accreditation.
Yes, and we've been at 11 agencies for a long time. A lot of those agencies did CALIA because there was nothing else at the time.
Right.
Like Cumberland when we did it,
Right.
Smithfield. So they just added Rhode Island to it.
Yeah, that's a great point, because I know, because Mass has theirs, and they've had their state accreditation for a long time.
Over 20 years.
Right. And so how old is Rhode Island's accreditation? Like, how old's RIPAC?
2012, the commission was formed. Yeah. I know it. I'm thinking, wow. Yeah, I was hired October 2012. So next year will be 10 years I've been doing this.
Wow.
I don't like how fast time is going by.
It's like a spinning wheel, or a snowball, I should say. It just keeps picking up speed.
Yes. Yes. See if the boss can get the Zoom link out of this one.
I've been doing all the talking. Cap, Sergeant, you guys got anything?
No, I'm just actually updating the website as we speak to put the job announcement on it.
Good.
I got nothing, Chief.
So, Sarge, you're on the record, and Christine's here, and I'm here. If you had to change one thing about this process, what would you do? I'll say it this way. Most favorite, least favorite. Doesn't say worst or bad, it's least favorite. If you had to change it, what would you do?
I mean, I think there's nothing I don't know. It's just tough for me to, because I think a lot of the delay for my understanding or my contribution to it to be done a little bit sooner than because I know you and I, when I first got promoted to this position and I started reviewing everything and did our in-house assessment, I told you tentatively I wanted to be done by September. I said, by September, I think I can get this done. And you said, great. And then COVID hit and screwed everything up. So it's kind of tough for me to say that. I mean, I guess for me, I just wish I had gained a better grasp on it sooner, I guess, because I felt like the mock assessment for me was such a eye-opener and such a good thing because I felt like, all right, I understand this. And then when I got the mock assessment results back and they just kind of butchered me, I said, okay.
That's a good job, though.
So when I went through, I said, okay, now I understand what they're saying. I understand their intentions, and now I get this a little bit better. So I got to tell you, I think there were times where it was challenging because I felt like I've got this. And then all of a sudden, within minutes, I would say I'm the biggest idiot alive. So I don't know, but it definitely was a check in terms of my knowledge of police department policy and everything. I had never, ever in my career dealt with confidential informants and with evidentiary practices and custodial interrogations. And all of a sudden I was writing policies on them. So the amount that I had to dive into specialized professions and specialized units within the police department to kind of get better, I just feel like that improved myself that much more. And in turn was a good thing.
You know the department better than anybody else right now.
Sure. Sure.
Seriously. And I'll tell you what helped me when the captain's promotion came around, I had been the accreditation manager. So any policy question they asked, I didn't even have to study the policies.
Right.
I knew them.
Right. Yeah, that's kind of how I'm starting to feel with a lot of this stuff too, because even we've just had situations that guys have been talking and I said, well, this is what our policy states. And I just instinctively think that. And again, when people are talking about working agreements with CIs or any of that kind of stuff, I know what the policy states. And I don't know if at any point in my career I'm ever going to have to actually use that in practicality. But
Unless you want detectives, yeah.
yeah, so it's one of those things where it's like, I don't know, it just helped me improve that much better with that kind of stuff. So I'd say for an individual basis, this was an invaluable lesson. And plus it's helped the department get better too. So
Yep.
I guess, I mean, I really don't have any detriments to say other than the fact that, again, I think it was just a moral gut check at times that I was like, I get this. And then there were other times I said, I don't understand this at all. So,
You know what I found when I was the accreditation manager, you kind of need to go through one whole complete cycle. And then when it's all over and done with and you get that final report and go, okay, now I get it.
right.
You know, and that's also kind of a nice thing that we do the mocks and it's fellow Rhode Islanders, because we're all trying to help make each other better. It's not like gotcha, you know?
Right.
And our philosophy is we're not looking to take it away from anybody. If there's issues that come up, we'll go in and we'll, come up with a solution.
Right. And it's like, I was talking about it with our firearms instructors, for example. I know our post submissions haven't been the best. So we have new firearms instructors now, and they just started about a month or two ago. So now I said, hey guys, when you do this, make sure you follow this SOP because you need to make sure this is, and they said, okay, we just never knew that. So it's one of those things where I don't think if anybody had ever told them, hey, make sure you're continuing to do this, that they would have ever continued to do it. So
Right. And I've actually had a couple of chiefs give me a hard time that we have that standard in there. They go, this is state law. Why did you make a standard? I said, call the academy and find out how many departments were actually submitting.
Right. Yeah. Because I was,
And I said, Chief, whether your guys did everything right or not, you have a use of force. They put your instructors up there and make them go through the whole gamut of what they do. And it can be exactly the same as the academy. And that lawyer is going to turn around and hold up the state law and say, but do you have a letter from the post saying?
right.
A stupid technicality, but it was too serious. So we made it a standard to make sure. I mean, I don't like to get involved with if there's a state law, but this was one that was critical and agencies weren't complying with it.
Right.
Only the clear agencies were at the time.
Yeah. So, I
But
mean,
it's one that could bite you in such a silly way that if it's a standard, everybody gets it done.
right. I mean, that, and even, and that's obviously a more serious note, but even like the emergency generator one, that was one where when I talked, they were like, I had the initial thought of, what does this matter? Until I actually sat down with the person who does it within our department, and they said, no, I don't do full load tests. Why would I risk that? I said, well, what happens if something happens? It's one of those things where you're not thinking about it until obviously you need to think about it, but this just challenges us to be more prepared for that kind of stuff.
Right, because nobody wants the generator to go out and not kick back on.
Exactly.
That wouldn't be a good thing. But you know how you can test for full load without actually having to shut the building down? Get your dispatches, make it a memorandum or something. When the power does go out, in the CAD log, did the generator come right on?
Yep.
Was there a delay? And then if there's an issue, they note it. But when that power goes out and the generator kicks in, that qualifies as a full load.
Okay, that's good to know. Yeah, because I just assumed that we had to do a manual full load test every year, but
Yeah, I mean, you don't really want to shut the building down if you don't
Right.
have to. But speaking of Rick Rathbun, it was so funny. He had a clear assessment when he was, I think, a sergeant at the time as their accreditation manager. And the assessor he had just had his assessment, and I guess it didn't go that well. So he came in with the hair across his behind. So he was giving Rick a hard time because, you know, both Rick and the chief would be calling me, and I'm like, no, that he's not right on this. Challenge him this way. Well, he wanted Rick to do the full load test. And, you know, even the maintenance guy was like, to shut the whole building down, it just didn't make sense. Rick was at his wit's end. The chiefs were having a meeting at Warwick PD in the community room. He went and shut the power off completely. And then the generator kicked in. But it was just, it's not always logical.
right.
You know, I mean, we try to use a common sense approach to this.
Oh, sure. Yeah, that's, I mean, and that's kind of what I'm seeing too is I guess if we were talking about another struggle that I had, it was just misinterpretations on my part of certain standards and certain policies and certain policy language. Because even for like 3.5, I know that with the health and fitness standard, I was like, okay, well, we vet them through the PT process when they first come through. And then when I talked with Mike about it, Mike said, no, we're referring to what are your physical job requirements when you're on the job.
Yeah.
So,
which is a challenging one, but I think with, you know, attention being paid to officer wellness more
right.
now, that may become something. But again, that health and fitness, and most of us, the health and fitness requirements are in the rules and regs. And the only time we enforced that was when we were having issues with somebody, you know, who ate a few too many donuts that they couldn't do the job. But in general, I mean, why don't we require at our cost? We got a Q&A?
Andrew's on it.
Okay. Why don't we require annual physicals?
Right. Yeah, it's something, I mean, the chief can speak on it. I have been adamant about a voluntary physical fitness assessment since I've started here. But yeah, there's just understandable hurdles to overcome as a result of that.
Sorry, I'm looking at the boss is having trouble
That's all right.
logging into a WebEx.
It does seem like a lot of the stuff that happens, like you talk about, it's not intentional stuff. You know, it's things, or it's if anything, and maybe it's a strong word to use in this case, it's just ignorance. We just didn't know. It wasn't meant like intentional, malicious. There's nothing along that. It's just, we just didn't know that we had to do this. Or the last time I cracked open a law book, I wasn't looking at this section knowing that I had to find some fine print or like one or two sentences at the end of a 4-page law that says I have to submit a report every year. I just didn't know. So this is where accreditation says, listen, you have to do this. And it kind of keeps us on top of those things. Because the law was written in 2006 and we just didn't know. And that's the benefit of it for sure.
Yeah, because a lot of this stuff is, because there is so much to the job, we wouldn't look at it until we got bitten by it.
Right.
You know, and I bring it back to what brought Cumberland to look at accreditation. Right after Tony Silver became the chief in like 97, 98, we paid out $250,000 for a strip search that never even happened. But at the end of the case, it all came down to the fact that because we didn't have a policy on how to conduct strip searches.
Right.
So you know how long it'll be before accreditation costs Cumberland $250,000?
Right.
You know,
Right.
but I tell these chiefs, yeah, it's all great, but sometimes having a policy and not holding people accountable to it is more detrimental than not having one at all.
Agreed. Agreed.
You know, I mean, and this is where the chiefs have to get on their supervisors. You know, everybody wants the promotion and the stripes. Well, guess what? A little responsibility goes with that. Sometimes you have to be the bad guy.
The captain.
We have that discussion often, don't we, Chief?
The captain's smiling because we had that conversation
This morning.
But, you know, and maybe we need to do some more scenario based in our promotional exams, you know?
Yeah, like assessment centers and stuff like that. Yeah.
And I'll admit the toughest one is going from patrol to sergeant, especially if you're now in charge of the very people that were your shift mates, you know? But I think if you make it clear, look, my responsibility now is to make sure we're all doing things the right way. Do what's expected. We won't have any issues. And you got to hold people accountable.
Right.
And you know what? If you hold one or two accountable, the rest fall in line.
Yep.
You know, and my thing was, as the captain, if I have to chew out the lieutenant and he's smart enough to chew out the sergeant, and it takes care of itself. You know, because that's the other thing. If the sergeant gets spanked a few times, now it's going to trickle down.
The stove is hot. Exactly. Don't touch the stove when it's hot.
Yeah. And, you know, my thing, everybody, oh, Sarge, you're trying to jam me up. You don't like me. Whoa. We're in here because of what you did or you said or you didn't do. Is this not what the policy says? Don't put this on me.
It's true. I mean, I know we're having the conversation here, and we're a smaller agency about mandatory supervisors. Because right now we don't. And that it potentially can be an issue. But it's something that I think we all agree that we need, but it's just how we get there. And for everything that you just said, Chris, is because if I'm Officer Jones and I come every day and my job I know is to be a patrol officer, but my sergeant Balzavano, he calls out sick or he wants a day off and I walk in, guess what today, Pat, you're the boss now. It's not that easy of a transition. And if something happens because I don't do this normally, I rely on my sergeant, my lieutenant, my captain, and I make a mistake, because there's no malicious intent, then what ends up happening is I'm going to get fired. I'm going to get disciplined. Is it my fault? Is it my fault that because I normally don't do this and I have to because I'm forced to do it and I make a mistake, now I got to be held accountable and I lose my job, I get disciplined. Is that fair?
Yeah.
And that's the conversation that we're having now. It's just how, and we all agree, it's just how do we make it happen?
The first time I was OIC, I had 9 months on the job.
We
First
can't,
time I was OIC at a shift.
Yeah. Yeah, you're right though, because somebody who didn't get the training or wasn't promoted and now all of a sudden you're making them act in that position, that's almost a deliberate indifference kind of. Yeah.
right. And I know the sergeant and I were talking about it because what happens now is, so the sergeant's on a day off, but he truly isn't on a day off because if Officer Jones has a question, I'm going to call up, hey, Marco, I'm on scene with this. What would you do? And now he's given me advice over the telephone or via text to help me answer a question that he's going to be held responsible for, even though he's not there or not even on duty.
Yeah.
We can't operate like that anymore. It's just how do we figure out with the number of personnel that we have, with the number of supervisors that we have, to ensure that we have that continuity to make sure that all the time that there is a boss. And there's got to be someone of rank and responsibility, and not just someone who just fills the seat temporarily. Someone who is been trained, been promoted, been vetted, and has this as part of their day-to-day responsibilities that they know they could be in charge. Not the poor guy or girl that walks through the door and gets told, "You're it today."
Yeah.
It can't be like that anymore.
Yeah. No. Hey guys, it's 2:04.
I see that our town administrator is here. I also see that another member of the council is in, Jay Edwards. So I don't know if they wanted to say anything because we started at one gentleman, so we were just getting ready to wrap up.
Where am I?
Oh, there's Chris.
You're on mute, Chris. Intentional?
I was just checking to see how it was going.
We were just getting ready to wrap up. So,
How's it going? All right.
all good.
One thumbs up. Thank you for all you do.
I appreciate you guys coming in and helping us out.
Well, that's what it's all about. And, it's important that you give the community the opportunity to provide feedback. And that's what this was all about.
So this is live on YouTube as well, right? So you getting comments from there?
We haven't. We had one positive comment. I know we've had a couple issues that Andrew's policed out
Okay.
that were just not even related. But just one comment. Other than that, it's been.
I know the staff has worked really hard at trying to get, all their ducks in a row, and they're working really hard to have all their policies, procedures, and, following all the right things that they need to do. They've been very professional about it. It's been a work in progress.
Yes. Well, I can say, having watched several agencies go through the process, the initial is usually the most challenging. This agency did very well on this assessment. So
Good. It's a testament to their dedication and moving forward. So it's they're a good group. They work really hard at what they're trying to achieve. So
yes, and the town fathers should be very happy with this because they've got the standards in place and the policies to take care of the community, and you can put your head down at night knowing that they know what they're doing.
what Jay Edwards to come in, he's one of the council members, so I don't know if he came in or not.
I don't know if he left. I just. Yep, he must have left.
You had a Q&A, Chief. I don't know if you got that.
No, he's back. Here's Councilor Edwards.
Yeah, there I am. I'm sorry. It wasn't that I spaced it out. I just couldn't figure out how to join.
Yeah, well,
Councilor Edwards, that's
not doing it.
Parker. She's the executive director of the Rhode Island Police Accreditation. And of course, the administrator and my captain and Sergeant Valzavano, who's been in charge of accreditation.
Very good. And I wasn't quite sure what this was going to be, exactly. So when I started watching it on YouTube, it was looking more like just a chat, but I got a useful information out of it. I'll tell you that. And as Chief Jones said, I'm sure we all get it, but I absolutely get it about the academy and staffing and all the difficulties. And Patrick Jones and I have talked about this at length many times.
Well, I know that he appreciates the support from the council and the local government, which is critical. Nobody holds more potential liability than your police department. So it's important that there's that back and forth communication and a mutual understanding. But you should be very proud. This is a good police department.
Well, I am.
I am as well.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, I don't want to cut you short, but I have to get ready for another Zoom meeting at 2:30.
Oh, God, what would we do without Zoom?
Well, the good thing is, or most common when we have these public comment sessions, very rarely does anybody respond. And usually when they do, it's with a positive comment. So don't, sometimes people are disappointed that nobody called in. It just is the nature of the beast. But the comments we did get, I received an email, which I forwarded to the chief, have been positive.
That's good.
So that's a good thing.
Christine,
All right.
thank you. We appreciate it. We know you got to run.
You're welcome. And Marco, good job.
Thank you
I
very
told
much.
the chief he definitely put the right person in charge of this.
I appreciate that. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. And I'd be happy to task you with looking at somebody else's files down the road.
Sounds good to me.